After 3 years abroad, her spouse came back, accompanied by his lover and their young boy. Calmly, she presented him with the divorce documents and departed, concealing her hidden wealth. For those endless 3 years of anticipation, Aaliyah Thurston had imagined Darius Sterling returning triumphant. Yet on the day he showed up, he introduced his paramour and offspring into the very residence they'd once envisioned sharing. Tears didn't fall from her eyes. No outbursts or recriminations escaped her lips. Instead, she merely set down the executed divorce filing and the property title upon the polished mahogany table in the living room. Unbeknownst to the elite circles that frequently belittled her as nothing more than a pampered spouse, this woman was actually the enigmatic creator of Phoenix Thread, a prestigious label specializing in upscale couture. Her assets were vast enough to rattle the foundations of New York City itself. The evening of his infidelity marked her own awakening, as she shed the old life with a composed grin and a prosperity that would soon captivate the globe. Aaliyah glanced at the clock on the wall. Evening had arrived at 7 hours. The savory scent of tender short ribs simmered in Merlot sauce, Darius's preferred dish, filled their expansive flat in Midtown Manhattan. A serving of gumbo still bubbled gently on the dinner table, artfully paired with wilted collard greens and chunks of smoked turkey, arranged with precision. It was all impeccable, mirroring the devotion she'd nurtured over the years. 3 years, precisely 1,095 days. That was the duration since Darius had departed for Chicago to chase what he described as the deal of a lifetime. For 195 solitary evenings, she'd lingered in that vast space, awaiting his brief calls. He'd vowed this venture would catapult him to the pinnacle of architectural renown in the Northeast, granting her an existence of unburdened luxury. She'd trusted him, just as she'd always trusted their bond from their time together at Howard University. She stood and approached the towering window, staring out at the chaotic flow of vehicles on Park Avenue. The glow of neon signs danced across her refined features, revealing faint traces of weariness from the vigil, yet unable to conceal her innate gentleness. During those 3 years, she'd adapted to handling it all by herself, fixing dripping pipes, swapping out bulbs, even visiting the hospital solo during bouts of sickness. She'd evolved from a protected girl into a fiercely self-reliant force. Still, at her core, she longed for the comfort of his arms. Today marked his return. A week prior, he'd phoned her, his voice brimming with unusual elation, declaring the initiative a triumph, and that he'd earned a promotion along with a reassignment to headquarters. "I'm heading home." Those unassuming words had set her pulse racing. Over the past 7 days, she'd scrubbed the place spotless, laundered the fabrics by hand, and that very afternoon, she devoted hours to crafting his beloved recipes. The chime of the doorbell shattered her reverie. Her pulse quickened. It was Darius. Inhaling deeply to steady the surge of feelings, she rushed toward the entrance. She yearned to welcome him with her brightest beam and tenderest clasp. The door swung wide. There he was, Darius, his frame imposing, his sharp-featured visage aged and accomplished beyond the man from 3 years back, clad in a costly tailor-made outfit. But his glance toward her felt odd, shifty. Aaliyah's focus shifted away from him swiftly, drawn to the figure trailing just behind. Another female, with a soft oval visage and wide expressive eyes that seemed vulnerable and forlorn. She was dressed in a spotless white gown. What truly stunned Aaliyah into stillness was the toddler cradled in the woman's hold. The child, roughly 2 years of age, slumbered peacefully, his traits strikingly mirroring Darius's own. Moments halted in place. The cozy vibe of the household chilled abruptly. Even the tempting fragrance of the meal failed to conceal the foul reek of treachery now permeating everything. Darius coughed to pierce the heavy quiet. He advanced inside, avoiding her stare. "Aaliyah, meet Simone Hargrove, and this is Malik." My boy. Aaliyah remained silent. Her eyes wandered from the unfamiliar woman's countenance to the dozing infant. My boy. Those 4 syllables struck like blades carving into her chest. 3 years of patience traded for a rival partner and a concealed heir. Simone bowed her head, her tone quivering with apparent remorse. Mrs. Sterling, I apologize deeply. I never meant to shatter your household. Darius scowled and drew Simone securely behind his stance. No need for regrets. It's on me, Aaliyah. I realize this hits out of nowhere, but Simone gave so much during those 3 years in Chicago. She stood by me, bolstered my professional path, and the child deserves acknowledgement. They'll stay here moving forward. I trust you can accept that. He proceeded with an extended monologue, each phrase justifying his actions while utterly disregarding her devotion. He anticipated tears, a dramatic outburst, jealousy like he'd seen from other women. Yet Aaliyah remained utterly composed, which unsettled Darius deeply. No weeping, no accusations, just a quiet stare from her, profound and calm like a still pond in fall. That expression stirred remorse in him, while Simone instinctively clutched the baby closer. Slowly, Aaliyah pivoted and made her way to the bedroom. Darius and Simone shared a look, their eyes flashing with a blend of victory and contempt. They figured she'd resigned herself to it all, that a stay-at-home wife without a job had no option but to swallow the blow. How mistaken they were. Moments later, Aaliyah reappeared, holding not a blade or packed bag, but a sleek navy folder. She approached the coffee table and set it down with care. Her tone rang out sharp and icy in the quiet room. This is the divorce filing. I've already put my signature on it. She locked eyes with Darius's shocked expression, then delivered her closing words, each one deliberate. Sign it and leave my home. The living room fell into stunned hush. Darius gaped at the folder, then at her impassive features, as though struggling to register her words. Leave my home. Fury surged in place of his surprise. His ego as a man felt crushed. Aaliyah, what kind of trick is this? He snarled, voice laced with fury and scorn. Who do you imagine you are, throwing me out? Take a look at your life. You've been idle here for 3 years. Every item in this place, from the tiniest ornament to that sofa, this lavish existence, it's all from my sweat and labor. Divorce. How will you even survive? His barbs pierced through Aaliyah's recollections, forcing her to revisit scenes from before. Back then, beneath the campus oaks at university, a youthful Darius in his crisp white shirt had clasped her hand, his gaze alight with dreams. Aaliyah, one day I'll rise as a top architect. I'll construct the grandest home for you, and we'll build a joyful family. At the time, she shone as the fashion design program's standout. Her designs left instructors in awe. A bright path lay ahead. Major ateliers vied for her talents prior to her diploma. But for Darius's vow, for the passion she harbored, she relinquished it all. She rejected alluring jobs and stepped aside, offering him steadfast backing to chase his ambitions. She trusted her choice would pay off. When the Chicago job came his way, he embraced her fiercely and vowed, "Give me just 3 years, nothing more. Once I'm back, I'll repay every bit." Year 1 brought daily phone chats, where he shared the stresses of a fresh urban grind. She absorbed it all with patience, soothing and motivating him. By year 2, contact dwindled to weekly check-ins. He blamed overload, late-night sessions he hated to interrupt her with. In their place, lavish parcels arrived, high-end purses, sparkling gems. Aaliyah left them untouched. She craved his presence, not lifeless luxuries. In the 3rd year, calls numbered scarcely more than fingers on a hand, each laced with shallow inquiries. His tone turned ever more remote. Her instincts as a woman signaled trouble. She'd fooled herself into seeing it as career obsession alone. Yet inside, a fissure had started in her spirit. She'd braced for the dire possibility, and that legal document marked her readiness for now. What she hadn't foreseen was its arrival so raw and open. The flood of flashbacks ebbed. Aaliyah snapped back, facing the man she'd once adored completely. No anguish lingered in her eyes, merely a subtle sarcasm. She skipped debating finances with him. Talk felt pointless. Quietly, she glided to the wooden cabinet in the room's corner. From a drawer, she pulled another safeguarded folder in plastic. She came back, stacking it atop the divorce papers. "You're correct," she stated evenly. "All of this home's contents came from cash, though none of it yours." Darius's brow furrowed in bewilderment. "What rubbish is that?" Aaliyah offered no reply. With her elegant finger, she slid the folder his way. "Examine it yourself." Wary yet intrigued, Darius grasped it. Within lay a faded document. Scanning the title, his eyes narrowed sharply. It proved to be the title deed. The property's address matched their Park Avenue unit precisely. But the real shock hit with the sole owner's name, boldly typed, Aaliyah Thurston. Tucked in the lower edge, the filing date, June 15th, 7 years prior, the eve of their wedding. Darius froze rigid as stone. This very residence, which he'd long boasted as his achievement, the one he flaunted to his friends, the basis of his insistence on her obedience, belonged to her well before they tied the knot. In the eyes of the law, it remained her personal holding. He held zero claim over it. He jerked his head up abruptly, fixing her with a look of utter incredulity. The smugness, fury, and smug triumph drained from his features, replaced by sheer confusion and total astonishment. He parted his lips to speak, yet something invisible seemed to grip his throat. Not a syllable escaped him. A profound hush enveloped the room. The document rested on the surface like a quiet indictment of Darius's hubris. His complexion shifted from pale to sickly. Disorientation and mortification shone clearly in his gaze. Right then, Simone, who had lingered quietly in Darius's shadow, dissolved into sobs. Rivulets streamed down her face. Her pitiful cries shattered the charged stillness. She advanced, her eyes brimming with tears as she faced Aaliyah. "Mrs. Thurston, I realize this mess is entirely my doing. I'm not seeking your pardon, and I have no intention of tearing apart your home. All I wish is for my boy Malik. He's blameless. He requires his dad. We're merely requesting a modest space in this residence to raise him. I demand no formal status. Please, show pity for the little one." Her act was flawless. Each phrase, each motion radiated a deliberate fragility, positioning her as the ultimate sufferer. Darius, snapping out of his daze, seized on Simone's theatrics to steady himself and vent his rage. He shoved her roughly out of the way and bellowed at Aaliyah with domineering tone. "Aaliyah, stop being so heartless. Look how humbly Simone's pleading. She's only seeking shelter for our child. Must you act this harshly? Don't assume that owning this flat means you control it all. Once we're split, how will you survive? A jobless woman who spent years just handling chores and meals. Do you believe the world outside is forgiving? Lacking my support, you couldn't afford even daily sustenance." His bruised ego fueled ever more cutting remarks. He'd erased their shared history from his mind. What lingered was sheer disdain for the partner he saw as reliant on him. Aaliyah felt no rage. She deemed it absurd. Gradually, she raised her eyes. Her piercing stare glided across Darius's outraged expression and halted on the hypocritical Simone. Silently, she pivoted and headed to their joint sleeping quarters. Darius figured his barbs had wounded her deeply, driving her to weep. A chilly smirk curled his mouth, but he erred yet again. Aaliyah flung open the expansive wardrobe and gestured to the left section, where a handful of her outfits dangled. They featured muted shades, basic cuts, everyday materials. A few appeared threadbare. Their combined worth likely fell short of a single upscale meal for Darius. Then she yanked open the opposite panel. An entirely opposite realm unfolded. Rows of high-end jackets, crisp blouses, neatly arranged neckwear in varied hues. Beneath sat polished footwear and a case with exclusive timepieces that gleamed. His whole collection screamed wealth and extravagance. Aaliyah spun back, locking eyes with him squarely. Her tone stayed measured, yet each term struck like a forceful impact against his torso. Darius, over our 3 years together, beyond the routine monthly allowance for household needs, I've not touched a penny of yours for personal use. Examine my wardrobe. Spot anything lavish. And yours. These outfits, these timepieces. Who funded them using your funds? I lack the authority to demand answers. But on what grounds do you school me in money matters? Her statements rendered him mute, his features flushing with fury and embarrassment. It rang true. He routinely wired her a set sum, scarcely sufficient for utilities and essentials. All the while, he lavished cash on indulgences to project his status as a thriving designer. He'd assumed Aaliyah remained oblivious. Suddenly, his device buzzed. He snatched it like a rescue line. It was his mom, Mrs. Sterling. Upon picking up, her piercing cry erupted. "Darius, my boy, word is you're home and Aaliyah's complicating matters. Darling, it's expected for fellows to stray occasionally. As his spouse, she ought to show more tolerance for the greater good. Assure her that if she complies, the Sterling clan will look after her. Remember, that kid is my kin." Before he could reply, Aaliyah seized the gadget. She pressed it to her ear. Her words came out frosty. "Mrs. Sterling, rest easy. I require neither your cherished boy nor your kin. We'll sort our troubles independently." With that, ignoring any comeback, she ended the call sharply. She flung the device back his way. Her stare held not a trace of warmth. The air in the flat thickened, growing nearly suffocating. The intervention from his mother proved the breaking point for Aaliyah's tolerance. She refused to linger a moment longer amid that setting with those individuals. She retrieved her personal mobile and punched in a well-known number. Aaliyah dialed the number without delay. Camille Dixon, from the law firm. "Hello, Camille. This is Aaliyah Thurston," she stated succinctly, her voice steady yet firm, leaving no room for debate. "Forward the divorce filing to Darius Sterling right away. Launch the legal process at full speed." "Got it," came the response from the line. The conversation wrapped up abruptly. Aaliyah slipped her phone into her pocket and, ignoring the 2 frozen people in the sitting area, headed directly to the sleeping quarters. Soon, the noise of a bag unzipping and cabinets shutting echoed through the space. Darius and Simone exchanged uneasy glances. Simone, her face etched with concern, pulled at Darius's arm. "Darius, what do you suppose she's planning?" "Just putting on a performance," Darius replied with a derisive chuckle, his assurance returning. "What more could she possibly attempt? She's only bluffing. I doubt she'll really depart. And if she does, where to? A buddy's couch or her old hometown? Someone used to a life of comfort won't last long in discomfort before crawling back, pleading." Simone drew solace from his reasoning, her eyes on the bedroom door sparkling with a mix of satisfaction and contempt. Indeed, a homemaker for all those years, stripped of funds or influence, how much longer could she sustain that bold front? Shortly after, Aaliyah stepped out, towing a compact bag. It measured 20 inches for easy travel and felt surprisingly lightweight. She'd swapped her outfit for everyday denim pants and a plain white top, her lengthy locks tied in a simple tail. She resembled a young scholar gearing up for a brief getaway, not someone freshly stung by spousal infidelity. She left behind anything tied to Darius, including the lavish gems he'd gifted. Only her personal items made the cut. She hauled the luggage toward the exit, eyes fixed ahead, never glancing over her shoulder. The lavish meal lingered hot on the dining surface, but to her, it now served as a cruel jest. As her fingers gripped the handle, Darius spoke with smug authority. "Ponder this well. Once your outburst fades and reason returns, you can come back. I'll offer you another opportunity." Aaliyah offered no words. A faint, barely noticeable grin curved her mouth. An opportunity. He still failed to grasp that she wasn't the one requiring mercy. Click, the portal shut, dividing their existences. Within, Darius and Simone shared a grin, convinced the spectacle had concluded, and victory was theirs. Beyond, Aaliyah rode the lift with poised shoulders, free of any doubt. Upon hitting the lobby, she exited the upscale residence she'd called home for years. The evening breeze from New York carried a gentle coolness. She skipped taxis or public transit. Instead, she waited quietly at the curb. Moments passed, under a minute, and a sleek dark Bentley arrived smoothly beside her. The back entrance swung open, revealing a driver in a spotless suit who emerged and inclined his head politely. "Miss Aliyah, if you would enter the vehicle." He relieved her of the modest case and stowed it securely in the rear compartment. Aaliyah remained silent, merely dipping her head in acknowledgement before easing into the opulent rear area. The panel shut with a hush, shielding her from the bustling streets. The vehicle moved fluidly, blending into the heavy flow. It veered away from downtown bustle or humble suburbs, curving onto a shaded avenue leading to Greenwich Village, the prime enclave of high-end living where land fetched fortunes per inch. At last, it halted at the entrance to a grand, old-world estate. The ornate wrought iron barrier parted on its own, admitting them into a pristine landscaped yard. Aaliyah alighted, inhaling the crisp atmosphere deeply. Here lay her real sanctuary. The sturdy timber entrance swung wide. A seasoned caretaker stood ready. "Welcome back, miss," she greeted warmly. This abode belonged not just to Aaliyah Thurston, but to her studio as well. The haven where masterpieces of design emerged, the hidden lair of the brand that shook the realms of couture and creativity. Phoenix Thread. 3 days following Aaliyah's exit, Darius got a packet from the court. He tore it open carelessly, skimmed the notice and the formal separation request from the attorney, and a sneer twisted his features. He'd figured she was merely upset, expecting her to slink homeward after enduring some rough patches. He never imagined she'd pursue it this earnestly, even engaging counsel. Big deal. A longtime domestic partner lacking earnings. How could she challenge him? He'd toss her a modest payout out of pity, wrap it up fast. Holding such disdain, Darius phoned his attorney, Mr. Williams, an expert in separations, and assuredly relayed his intent to join the initial session to uncover whatever schemes his soon-to-be former wife might devise. The offices of Camille Dixon sat on the 35th level of a towering skyscraper. Nestled amid the bustling core of the financial hub, the sleek building featured polished glass facades and a refined, understated opulence that radiated sophistication and elite access. Darius stepped inside alongside his attorney. The evident extravagance only solidified his conviction that Aaliyah had simply taken out a loan to maintain appearances. Inside the conference area, a woman in her upper 30s sat patiently for their arrival. Dressed in a flawlessly fitted gray trouser ensemble, with her hair neatly secured in a bun, subtle cosmetics, and a piercing stare that cut like a blade. This was Camille Dixon, the legal representative for Aaliyah Thurston. With a polite inclination of her head, Camille gestured for them to take seats, offering no further preliminaries. Mr. Williams, Darius's counsel, opened the discussion in a tone laced with subtle superiority. "Ms. Dixon, we've reviewed the filing from Mrs. Thurston. My client, Mr. Sterling, places great importance on personal relationships. He prefers to avoid any acrimony. As for splitting the marital estate, we're aware that Mrs. Thurston hasn't held employment for quite some time, relying entirely on Mr. Sterling for her livelihood. out of respect for their shared years together. Mr. Sterling is prepared to offer a generous alimony arrangement, enough for her to secure housing and seek fresh employment opportunities. Camille Dixon absorbed his words quietly, her slender fingers tapping rhythmically against the surface. Once Mr. Williams concluded, she responded with composed assurance. "Mr. Williams, it seems there's been a misapprehension. My client, Mrs. Thurston, seeks no alimony whatsoever from Mr. Sterling." Williams and Darius traded glances brimming with astonishment and derision. Zero assistance. Did she intend to depart with nothing? Undeterred, Camille pressed on with resolute clarity. "Our requests are straightforward. Primarily, a swift dissolution of the marriage, grounded in undeniable proof of Mr. Sterling's infidelity." She advanced a dossier, filled with images across the table. The snapshots captured Darius and Simone in compromising embraces in Chicago, including shots of them alongside young Malik coming and going from an upscale residential tower. A subtle shift crossed Darius's features. He hadn't anticipated Aaliyah possessing such material. Next, Camille proceeded on the matter of property. "The residence on Park Avenue belongs solely to my client, purchased prior to their union, leaving no room for negotiation. That said, earnings accrued by Mr. Sterling throughout the marriage qualify as joint assets. We insist on a fair allocation as stipulated by statute." Mr. Williams emitted a brief chuckle. "Ms. Dixon, surely you're not serious. While Mr. Sterling's earnings do count as communal, Mrs. Thurston has benefited from them for years on end. A 50-50 split would leave her with scant resources. Mrs. Thurston ought to adopt a more pragmatic stance. Opting for alimony would serve her interests far better." Darius reclined in his seat, arms folded, a smug grin etched on his face. He observed Camille with entertained curiosity, eager to witness how she'd sustain this pretense. Camille remained unfazed, fixing her gaze on Mr. Williams. A faint knowing curve touched her mouth. "Very well, then. Let's address reality." She reached down to unlatch the briefcase at her side and extracted a heftier file than the photographic one. With deliberate care, she set it before them and slid it Darius's way. "Mr. Sterling, you assert that my client relied on you for her very existence? Yes, kindly examine this." Darius's brow furrowed as he grasped the document with intrigued reluctance. The opening sheet revealed a banking summary. His gaze raced over the entries, halting at the closing total. The sum wasn't extensive in digits, yet it seized his attention like a vice, his eyes narrowing sharply. 8 trailing zeros. He flipped onward hastily. Another institution's ledger, another staggering amount. Page after page blurred by under his frantic scrutiny. His grip started to quiver. Records of credit usage, bond portfolios, equity holdings. Each revelation landed like a blow. Yet the disclosures didn't end there. Further down came listings of real estate titles, a row house in Soho, retail premises on Rodeo Drive, a sprawling property in the Hamptons, everyone registered under Aaliyah Thurston's ownership. The ultimate revelation that shattered his world was a filing on business stakes. Aaliyah Thurston controlled 70% of an entity named Phoenix Thread. Phoenix Thread, that rang a bell. He'd overheard associates' spouses reference it. An elite apparel label renowned for exorbitantly priced, elusive artisanal silk embroidery. An emblem of upper-crust prestige. The chamber plunged into utter quiet. Mr. Williams at his side stood frozen, jaw slackened in shock. Darius sensed a chill coursing through his bloodstream. His breaths grew ragged and urgent. Lifting his eyes to Camille, he conveyed a stare blending disbelief, confusion, fury, and an underlying profound dread. The spouse he'd long scorned, whom he deemed capable only of domestic chores, the partner he was certain couldn't survive independently, turned out to be a covert tycoon. The revelation struck with such abrupt ferocity that it left him utterly unprepared. As Darius grappled with this mental upheaval in the attorney's quarters, Aaliyah inhabited an entirely separate realm. Her traditional home in Greenwich Village transcended mere shelter. The second and third, the upper levels had evolved into a masterful atelier, brimming with artistry. Gone was any hint of kitchen grease. Instead, a faint whiff of sandalwood mingled with the refined fragrance of premium silks. Sunlight poured in through expansive French windows, casting a glow on racks lined with vibrant embroidery flosses that shimmered like a spectrum of hues. Aaliyah had shed her everyday homemaker attire for a sophisticated silk gown in a hazy azure shade. The gentle material draped over her lithe yet shapely form. Her lengthy locks were loosely secured with a wooden pin, revealing the poised curve of her neck. Without heavy cosmetics, she still projected an enchanting presence, a fusion of an artist's timeless poise and a leader's assured resolve. Positioned in front of a grand embroidery hoop, her fingers danced nimbly, threading the needle across a field of ebony silk. Under her touch, a blazing phoenix emerged vividly. Each plume appeared strikingly lifelike, glowing with a luminous gold. Her focus halted the world around her. A young aide, Maya, slipped in softly, clutching a tablet. "Aaliyah, apologies for interrupting, but we've just received a major partnership offer," she said. Maya avoided titles like director or chief. In this space, Aaliyah was addressed warmly yet respectfully, preserving the proper esteem. Aaliyah paused her stitching, though her gaze stayed fixed on the piece. "From who?" "The Sterling and Stone Group," Maya replied, a key player in upscale property and fine art investments. Their CEO, Mr. Quincy Davis, is a huge fan of Phoenix Threads creations. They're launching a fresh retail and cultural hub named the Pinnacle Art Center. They'd like to extend a direct invitation to Phoenix Threads founder for partnering on a bespoke silk embroidery display area in the primary atrium. It would serve as the project's focal highlight. This was an offer of immense significance. The Pinnacle Arts Center was expected to emerge as New York's latest landmark. Featuring Phoenix Threads pieces in such a prime spot could propel the brand to new heights of recognition. Aaliyah pondered briefly. Over the past 3 years, to prioritize her modest family life, she turned down numerous grand ventures, taking on just select personal orders to sustain the workshop. She'd concealed herself under the Phoenix Thread banner for so long that her former bold aspirations had nearly faded from memory. Now, unencumbered and unbound, she felt ready. Maybe it was Phoenix Thread's moment to truly flourish. She faced Maya, her expression steady and resolute. "Let them know we're open to discussing. Set up a session for me with Mr. Davis." Maya smiled eagerly and stepped out to handle it. Aaliyah resumed at the hoop, her fingertips tracing the phoenix's glorious wings. The bird ascends from its ruins. That might mirror her own path. The collapse of her union hadn't shattered her. It had forged her into something tougher and more vibrant. Her eyes drifted to the view outside, toward Manhattan's towering spires. Her path forward, and Phoenix Threads, started in this very instant. With Aaliyah gone, Simone Hargrove could at last claim the apartment as the household's new matriarch. She devoted her initial day scouring each space, methodically wiping away every remnant of her predecessor. Out went the soft blue linens Aaliyah cherished, swapped for bold crimson ones with a seductive flair. The dainty balcony planters gave way to lavish rose arrangements. She even acquired pricey modern abstracts to adorn the walls, enforcing a starkly altered aesthetic, one that screamed Simone Hargrove. Every alteration got snapped and shared on her Instagram, laced with pointed captions. Beside an image of a dimly lit intimate supper, she captioned, "Joy can be slow to show up, but with the perfect match, every second counts." Under a shot of young Malik romping on the fresh couch, she noted, "My boy now has a full family nest. Love turns any place into home." But these updates acted like sly barbs, designed to pierce Aaliyah's spirit. Simone pictured her rival huddled in a dingy leased flat, scrolling through the pics with a soul aching from hurt and envy. She yearned for backlash, a slur, or simply proof of torment. Yet nothing came. Aaliyah Thurston's account stayed utterly quiet. Her avatar was still a pristine magnolia bloom. The most recent update dated back 6 months. It was as if she'd vanished from the digital realm, brushing off Simone's jabs entirely. This quietude left Simone punching at air, like battering a padded bag. Infuriating. She couldn't fathom Aaliyah's composure. Meanwhile, in the university alumni WhatsApp chat, their saga had turned into the buzz of the town. It was a buddy known as Lazy Kitten who kicked off the chatter. "Folks, have you caught wind of it?" Darius hauled his lover and their kid back to the house. "Aaliyah's gone. That poor soul, Aaliyah. All those years she poured her life into him, just to wind up deserted like this." Then someone, probably one of Darius's pals, leaped in to back him up. Love stuff gets messy. Darius spent 3 lonely years grinding away in Chicago. It's only human for a guy far from home to slip up once. Right away, another voice shot back. "A slip-up that produces a 2-year-old kid. What kind of fool does he take Aaliyah for?" The debate fired up fast. Some folks felt sorry for Aaliyah. Others hinted she couldn't hold on to her man. A lady who's all sweetness and stuck in domestic mode is bound to get ditched. Just see her situation now. She's probably suffering badly. What era does she think this is? Leaning on a guy like that? Simone scrolled through all the remarks. She got a kick out of the ones bashing Aaliyah, but it irked her that plenty still rooted for her. Even without being there, Aaliyah cast a long shadow over Simone's world. She glanced at Darius, slumped on the couch with a scowl, and cooed sweetly, "Darling, why not ring her up and chat? Her quietness is getting to me." But Darius, fresh from the attorney's place, was in a foul temper. He brusquely shook off her touch. "Getting to you? How? She's playing the victim card. Quit fretting over her." Faced with Darius's rare sharp edge, Simone held her tongue. She choked down her irritation. Little did she know, in Darius's thoughts, she and the little one meant nothing anymore. His brain was fixated on Aaliyah Thurston's vast hidden wealth. To Simone, Aaliyah's hush screamed disdain. She failed to see it as the strongest strike. Once a person stops giving a damn, every jab falls flat. Darius stormed out of the Park Avenue high-rise, his mind a whirlwind of turmoil. The figures from the accounts, the spots of high-end estates, and those 2 cryptic words, Phoenix Thread, swirled non-stop in his skull, sparking unrelenting disorder. Back at the flat, he barricaded himself in the study, tuning out Simone's anxious raps on the door. His gut punch wasn't regret, but raw rage. A con job. "The whole thing's a con," he fumed, pounding the desk. Aaliyah Thurston, the mild-mannered spouse he'd figured he could steer, had the nerve to fool him, amassing a fortune in secret for years. He came off like a fool, a dupe played for laughs without a clue. His ego lay in ruins. Yet once the wrath faded, bafflement washed over him. How on earth? Where'd the cash come from? Phoenix Thread. What was that? Why keep it under wraps? He launched his own desperate probe. No way he'd quiz his business contacts or wealthy acquaintances. The shame burned too hot. Owning up that his wife, the one he always bragged about carrying, outstripped him in riches by miles. Unthinkable embarrassment. He fell back on tried-and-true tactics. Flipping through his contacts, he dug up digits for long-lost college mates. Posing it as planning a class get-together, he eased into inquiries. First up, the old student bodyhead. After the standard hellos, he dropped it offhand. "Say, you keeping tabs on Aaliyah Thurston? She's been off my radar." "Aaliyah?" The guy paused. "But aren't you hitched to her?" "Spotted her last at that bash 5 years back. Radiant as always, but more reserved. Come to think of it, you snagged the department star from under our noses." Darius's brow furrowed. "Star? You forget." The leader chuckled. Who was Aaliyah Thurston in those days? The standout in fashion design. Her capstone piece snagged the National Design Award and got showcased at Chelsea Market. Big league companies scrambled for her, dangling paychecks fresh grads could only fantasize about. Each line from his former chum hit like a sledgehammer. He dimly recalled it, but details had faded. Sure, she sketched brilliantly, yet he'd ignored the honors and gigs. Back then, he was just high on romance and swollen with vanity over landing such a stunning, gifted partner. We figured she'd skyrocket as a designer, perhaps go global, the pal went on. Then boom. Once she linked up with you, she ditched it all. Claimed she preferred homemaking to back you up. We all pitied her loss. Romance sure fogs the mind. After the call ended, Darius sat frozen in his seat. For the first stretch in ages, remorse seeped into his chest. It all flooded back now. He pictured the glow in her gaze as she shared her creative visions. He saw her poise on that award stage. He'd sworn to stand by her. He'd once felt a twinge of remorse for suppressing her potential with his egotism and drive for success, transforming a vibrant phoenix into an ordinary bird trapped in the lavish enclosure he'd built. Yet that remorse evaporated in mere moments, eclipsed by a more potent, sinister urge: avarice and resentment. If her skills had secured such wealth on her own, it made sense. But why conceal it? A venomous idea took shape in his mind: that wealth had come during their union. Regardless of the means, it qualified as shared assets under the law. She'd withheld details from him. She'd betrayed his trust. The blame lay with her. Darius's perspective shifted utterly. Gone was the philandering spouse, eager for a swift split to pursue his latest flame. In his place emerged a ravenous predator, eyeing a tempting quarry. Simone and their boy receded into irrelevance. His only goal now: claim a portion, or perhaps the whole, of Aaliyah Thurston's concealed domain. 1 month on, the Waldorf History Hotel in New York City shimmered beneath the evening glow. High-end vehicles lined up at the grand entrance. Media outlets, top fashion influencers, and key players from the urban commerce and creative scenes converge there. Every eye fixed on one spectacle: the unveiling of Phoenix Thread's latest line, partnered with the Pinnacle Art Center initiative from the Sterling and Stone conglomerate. Until this point, Phoenix Thread remained an enigma. Its offerings thrived without broad promotion, gaining prestige through whispers in exclusive circles like a guarded gem. Whispers suggested its creator excelled in silk stitching, yet her features and real name stayed unknown. This alliance with a powerhouse firm, coupled with a debut public showcase, had rocked the sector. Back in the cramped flat, Darius slumped on the couch, his expression stormy. Simone fussed over young Malik, whose wails persisted. Strain hung heavy in the air. The separation dragged far slower than he'd anticipated. Aaliyah's attorney, Camille Dixon, proved unyielding, deploying proofs and logic that pinned his team back on their heels. Probes into Aaliyah's holdings hit a wall, all safeguards held firm. In irritation, he switched on the TV and scanned the lineup. Abruptly, he halted on a business news feed, airing a style gala in real time. The banner headline snagged his gaze: unveiling the Phoenix Rising series by Phoenix Thread and the Sterling and Stone Group. Phoenix Thread. The phrase struck like a barb into his rawest spot. He gaped at the display. The platform gleamed with elegance, the illumination enchanting. Runway figures strutted in striking ensembles featuring intricate manual stitching, notably a blazing phoenix motif that appeared to ignite upon ebony silk. It struck him. These weren't mere garments. They were masterpieces. The display concluded amid roaring cheers. The host stepped forward, his tone buzzing with thrill. And now, esteemed guests, the highlight we've all awaited. Join us in greeting the originator, the essence of Phoenix Thread, stepping into the spotlight for the very first time. Spotlights swiveled toward the wings. Beams converged on a lone point. Darius's pulse quickened oddly. He shared the intrigue. Who truly hid behind that veiled persona? From the shadows glided a graceful silhouette. As illumination bathed her, the audience drew a collective breath. She donned a silvery white silk dress, embroidered with a magnolia sprig in luminous, otherworldly threads. Her tresses swept into an elegant updo, exposing a refined, composed visage that radiated an uncommon presence. No broad grin lit her features. A subtle dip of the head acknowledged the crowd, yet her gaze gleamed with assurance and dignity. Darius went rigid. The tumbler slipped from his grasp, crashing to the floor in shards. The harsh noise failed to snap him from his daze. Simone whirled, a rebuke on her lips, but it died unspoken as she beheld the screen. The figure basking in glory, drawing waves of praise as a creative prodigy, was Aaliyah Thurston. Not the meek, unassuming partner they'd scorned for years. She embodied Phoenix Thread. Just then, a refined, striking gentleman ascended the stage. Clad in a flawlessly cut suit, he projected refinement and poise. It was Quincy Davis, head of the Sterling and Stone conglomerate. He positioned himself next to Aaliyah, his expression brimming with esteem and awe. Together, they formed a striking duo, an artistic visionary and a corporate titan. They seemed uncannily in sync. That scene, framed by the TV glow, cut like the keenest knife severing the final shred. The remnants of his arrogance faded as Darius departed. Come morning, he made his way by car to the grand estate where Aaliyah resided. Gone was any trace of fury or disdain on his features. Instead, exhaustion etched deep lines across his face. Sleepless nights had left his eyes rimmed in red. He'd crafted a fresh approach. Pressing the doorbell, he waited. The maid answered, her stare icy and unyielding. "Apologies, sir. Ms. Aaliyah isn't receiving visitors." With a desperate tone, Darius implored, "Please, just inform Aaliyah that I recognize my errors. I'm here to plead for her mercy. I'll remain outside until she agrees to see me." True to his word, he lingered by the entrance, basking in the rising warmth of the dawn light. Deep down, he figured that even in her resolve, Aaliyah wouldn't abandon her ex-husband to the mercy of the weather. He misjudged her resolve entirely. Nearly 60 minutes passed before the sturdy metal barrier swung wide. Yet it wasn't Aaliyah who emerged to face him. Rather, the maid appeared, bearing a simple tumbler of water. She set it atop a stone column beside the gate. "Ms. Aaliyah instructs that if Mr. Sterling insists on waiting, he may do so. But he shouldn't faint from the heat right there, as it might inconvenience the neighbors." With that, she pivoted and secured the entrance once more. Fury flushed Darius's cheeks a deep crimson. This slight cut deeper than any barb, yet he reined in his temper. Force wasn't an option, only strategy would serve. At last, around midday, Aaliyah consented to meet him in the parlor. She perched on a lone armchair, cradling a mug of chamomile tea, composed as though entertaining a casual caller. The moment Darius caught sight of her, his gaze sparkled with intent. He strode forward, aiming to claim the spot beside her. But her frosty look halted him short. Reluctantly, he settled into the couch across from her. Launching into his act, he infused his words with regret and sorrow. "Aaliyah, forgive me. These past days, I've reflected deeply. I admit I'm a villain who let you down. It was all that sly Simone Harov's spell over me. After all our shared years as spouses, couldn't you offer me a shot at making things right?" Aaliyah took a measured sip, observing his display wordlessly. Met with silence, Darius shifted gears. "I caught your showcase yesterday evening. You're remarkable, Aaliyah. Never realized you were behind Phoenix Thread. That must have demanded endless effort on your part. You hid it from me, too. Had I understood your gifts and dedication, I'd have cherished you properly. Now," he started bending the facts, "your holdings, your label, they developed during our union, didn't they? By legal standards, that counts as joint assets. Aaliyah, why pursue a split? For the sake of our history, drop the filing. Moving forward, I'll stand with you. I'll support the business, boost your professional path. Side by side, we'll forge a vast legacy. At last, his facade crumbled, unveiling not contrition or affection, but an insatiable hunger for her vast wealth. Aaliyah placed her mug softly on the surface, the faint clink startling Darius. Lifting her eyes, she met his for the first time since his arrival, her stare piercing and unclouded, as if dissecting his very essence. "Darius, have you said your piece?" she uttered deliberately, each syllable precise. Rising, she crossed to her workspace and retrieved a thick file. To begin, Phoenix Thread was trademarked and the firm established by me prior to our wedding. It stands as my sole possession. Moreover, throughout our marriage, every bit of revenue flowed into a dedicated account overseen by a neutral trustee. My attorney holds the full paperwork verifying the sources and isolation of those resources. It bears no relation to any claim of shared marital wealth. Finally, regarding the divorce filing, I have no intention of retracting it. Each statement landed like a crushing strike against Darius's scheme. He'd never imagined her so thorough, so airtight, denying him even the tiniest opening. Aaliyah moved toward the exit and gestured to the maid. "Please show this visitor out and make certain he doesn't return." Darius froze amid the room, fixated on Aaliyah's impassive retreating figure. The audacity that had masked his expression gave way to genuine alarm and despair. He grasped that he'd forfeited everything. Several days following her discussion with Quincy Davis, as Aaliyah Thurston immersed herself in designs for the Pinnacle Art Center initiative, the maid approached with a hesitant demeanor. "Ms. Aaliyah, Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Darius Sterling's mother, has arrived at the entrance and requests an audience." Aaliyah halted briefly, yet her hand remained steady on the sketch pad. She'd foreseen this moment. Considering her ex-mother-in-law's temperament, and now that her role as Phoenix Thread had surfaced, staying sidelined was unthinkable. She set aside her tool. "Invite her inside," she replied evenly. The maid seemed taken aback but complied. Aaliyah aimed to resolve every loose end definitively. Mrs. Sterling was ushered into the parlor, in tea. In stark opposition to her haughty and domineering demeanor during that phone call a few days ago, she appeared completely broken today. Her silver locks disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying, her outfit rumpled and unkempt. The moment she spotted Aaliyah, she hurried over, tears brimming in her gaze. "Aaliyah, it wasn't my doing. I messed up," she pleaded, reaching out to clasp Aaliyah's hand. But Aaliyah deftly pulled away, dodging the grasp. Mrs. Sterling's arm hung awkwardly in midair as she hastily dabbed at her eyes and launched into her theatrical display. "My dear, I know I was mistaken. At my age, I can't tell good from bad anymore. These past few days, I haven't eaten or rested at all. Guilt is eating me alive. I've come here to plead for your mercy." Aaliyah settled quietly onto the couch, gesturing for the elderly lady to take the seat opposite in the easy chair, keeping a careful space between them. She remained silent, observing just how far the act would extend. When Aaliyah showed no response, Mrs. Sterling ramped up her theatrics. She started pinning the blame squarely on Simone Harrove. "It's all that vixen's doing. She lured my Darius in. He's always been a fine young man devoted to his spouse. That witch ensnared him with the baby to keep him bound. That's the reason for his slip-up with you, my child. You're the ideal partner the Sterling clan could hope for. Stunning, compassionate, and incredibly gifted. I let you down. My boy let you down." She sobbed deeply before shifting to desperate appeals. "Aaliyah, for the sake of this frail woman, for all those years wedded, pardon him just this time. Which husband avoids errors? If you return, I swear I'll evict that woman and her infant from our home right away. I'll force Darius to get on his knees and seek your pardon. To drive her point home, she didn't shy away from slandering the very child she'd once dubbed her grandson. I never desired that illegitimate kid. For all we know, he might not even be Darius's, could belong to another man. I'll never recognize him as a true Sterling heir. You alone are our rightful daughter-in-law. At those words, Aaliyah's composure cracked, though not from sympathy, rather from profound revulsion. The sheer nerve and deceit of this lady surpassed anything Aaliyah had envisioned. She lifted her head, locking eyes with Mrs. Sterling's tear-streaked, insincere stare. "Mrs. Sterling, has your little show concluded?" she asked in an icy, detached tone. The formal title halted Mrs. Sterling's feigned smile in its tracks, signaling an unbridgeable divide. Aaliyah pressed on without a flicker of feeling. "Not long ago, you were the one phoning me, urging patience with your son and grandson for the family's harmony. Yet now, you're perched here, vilifying them as a tramp and a bastard. Doesn't that strike you as inconsistent and absurd?" Mrs. Sterling's complexion drained, leaving her speechless. Aaliyah rose to her feet. Her expression turned utterly frosty. "Whatever tied me to Darius Sterling is finished. I'll never drop the divorce filing, nor do I care to rejoin your scheming household. I request that you leave me in peace from here on out." She addressed the maid. "Mrs. Carmen, kindly escort our visitor to the door." Mrs. Sterling froze in shock, refusing to accept such a degrading send-off. She attempted a rebuttal, but Aaliyah's resolute chill silenced her. She realized reconciliation was impossible. The maid drew near, polite yet resolute. "Mrs. Sterling, if you'll follow me this way." Mrs. Sterling rose unsteadily and trailed her to the entrance, utterly shamed. The grand doors closed with a resounding thud behind her, sealing the end of her futile dreams. Ever since being ousted from Aaliyah's estate, Darius Sterling had transformed entirely. Gone was the assured swagger of the accomplished designer. He abandoned any pretense of doting spouse or ideal parent. He holed up in his study for hours amid stacks of scattered papers. These weren't design plans, however. They consisted of dossiers he'd gathered on the Phoenix Thread label, Aaliyah's property holdings, and attorney Camille Dixon. The deeper he delved, the more frantic he grew. It all formed an unbreakable bastion, seamless and secure. Frustration morphed into anger, and he lashed out at his surroundings. The infant Malik's wails grated on him. Simone's meals repulsed him. The flat, formerly an emblem of triumph, now seemed like a stifling prison. Simone naturally sensed the shift. Darius's warmth and care had evaporated, supplanted by sharp rebukes and aloofness. Anxiety gnawed at her. Her vision of ascending as Mrs. Sterling, matriarch of affluence, drifted further out of reach. She resolved to act and secure her place. That evening, once Malik was asleep, Simone slipped into an alluring satin robe, decanted some crimson wine, and slipped into the study. "Darling, you shouldn't labor so long into the night. It'll wear you down." Darius kept his eyes on his work, merely mumbling in reply. Simone placed the glass beside him, encircled his shoulders from the rear, and murmured. Darius paused, then said, "Listen, the split from her is nearly finalized. Why don't we scout some venues for our ceremony this weekend? My father's been inquiring about it as well. He insists on hosting a lavish event." The mention of wedding ignited a powder keg of rage simmering within Darius. He brusquely shoved her hands aside and leaped to his feet, veins throbbing in his eyes. "A wedding! Have you lost your mind? How dare you even consider ceremonies amid all this?" Simone recoiled in shock, her expression shifting to indignation. "And what's wrong with that? My child and I deserve some formal acknowledgement, right? Or are you planning to leave us in this unofficial limbo indefinitely?" Darius unleashed a harsh, mocking chuckle laced with bitterness. "Acknowledgement! That's all that matters to you. Status. Do you grasp what we forfeited? A vast fortune. The kind of existence we could have savored eternally. And it's entirely because of you. Without you and that kid, we wouldn't be in this mess. Simone froze, her eyes brimming with tears. Blame me, Darius. How could you utter such words? The man from Chicago who vowed undying affection, who claimed exhaustion with his foolish spouse. And now you're dumping every ounce of fault on my shoulders. For the first time, their dispute ignited fully, hurling accusations of resentment, schemes, and self-interest at one another. I knew she was wealthy. Insane to abandon her for someone like you. Darius bellowed. You assume I can't read your thoughts. She shot back. You lament not holding on to that treasure trove. You loathe me since I can't offer the perks she provided. Darius Sterling, you're just a fortune hunter at heart. Crash. Darius swiped the wine goblet from the table. It exploded against the tiles, crimson liquid splattering across the cream rug like fresh wounds. Tension chilled the air. They glared at each other with raw animosity, resembling utter unknowns. The bond forged in deceit and ambition revealed its initial profound, unfixable fissure. No longer comrades in conspiracy, they had become isolated egoists scrambling to salvage personal gains amid a crumbling vessel. As turmoil engulfed the outer world, Aaliyah Thurston remained utterly unconcerned. Once she dismissed the bothersome intruders, she poured her full focus and vigor into her duties. The Pinnacle Art Center endeavor required immense innovation and funding, yet that merely fueled her enthusiasm. Beyond this venture, though, Aaliyah nursed a separate ambition, rooted in her passion for embroidery craftsmanship. During a session with the Phoenix Thread Executive Group, she unveiled the initiative formally. The conference display featured visuals of an ancient hamlet by a waterway, its rooftops blanketed in moss and walls weathered to pale hues. It evoked serenity, yet also neglect. This is Blue Ridge Threadworks, nestled in the North Carolina mountains, Aaliyah declared with crisp, fervent tone. It once stood as a premier hub for silk and manual stitching nationwide, but modernization has gradually eroded the tradition. Today, just a handful of aging experts persist, holding onto their skills while scraping by. She halted, scanning the faces around her. Phoenix Thread thrives because of that timeless embroidery heritage. We can't simply take without contributing in return. That's why I've resolved to channel this year's entire earnings into the Phoenix Rising Heritage Initiative. The assembly fell quiet, absorbing her words. We'll revive the Blue Ridge Threadworks site. We'll refurbish the facilities, upgrade the tools, bring in veteran craftspeople to instruct, and offer no-cost workshops for younger talents. We'll transform it into more than a specialized manufacturing spot, into a sanctuary for cultural safeguarding and interactive visitor experiences. We'll resurrect silk embroidery to its peak era. Aaliyah's vision transcended commerce. It stemmed from profound yearning. She aimed to deploy her resources in defending vanishing artistic legacies. Soon after, details of the endeavor circulated through news outlets. Leveraging Phoenix Thread's renown, the Phoenix Rising Heritage Project garnered widespread endorsement from communities and regional authorities. Observers lauded it as a vital gesture, underscoring corporate civic duty. The reputations of Phoenix Thread and Aaliyah Thurston soared even higher among the masses. Aaliyah couldn't have foreseen how this heartfelt gesture would unwittingly deliver a devastating strike against Darius and Simone's schemes. Meanwhile, in a building firm's headquarters, Simone's dad, Mr. Hargrove, slammed his fist on the surface in outrage. That individual, Aaliyah Thurston, Darius, ashen-faced, occupied the seat opposite. They pored over the finance periodical's lead story on Phoenix Thread's undertaking. Do you realize the location of that Threadworks hamlet? Mr. Hargrove snarled. It sits adjacent to the plot we poured fortunes into readying for seizure and acquisition. Our resort development is in jeopardy. The authorities have greenlit her initiative to safeguard the site as cultural heritage. Our land acquisition strategy is in tatters. The whole upfront funding could vanish into thin air. A shiver coursed through Darius's body. That development was an enormous undertaking. His chance to revive his professional life following a string of setbacks. He'd poured every ounce of his effort and network into it. Simone, present in the room, stuttered uncertainly. Dad, perhaps it's merely a fluke. A fluke. Her father chuckled with grim irony. You're far too innocent. Such accidents don't exist in our reality. That lady is obviously targeting us. She's intent on blocking every possible path forward. Darius gripped his hands into fists, the tendons bulging on their backs. He refused to accept it as chance. He was convinced it formed a meticulously orchestrated retaliation from Aaliyah. She wasn't content with the separation and her share of the estate. She aimed to shatter his livelihood and prospects entirely. Dread and resentment merged, fueling a poisonous delusion. He eyed Simone with distrust. Had she learned of this venture earlier? I have no idea, Simone faltered. She's played a ruthless hand, Darius bellowed. We're utterly powerless against her. Meanwhile, in her atelier, Aaliyah was carefully sketching the foundational outlines for the upcoming Blue Ridge Threadworks community. She remained oblivious that a decision driven by passion had unwittingly driven her betrayers to the edge of ruin. This instinctive step proved the shrewdest maneuver of them all. When troubles come, they flood in. No proverb rang more accurate for Darius right then. As he and Simone's kin scrambled for an exit from their derailed resort endeavor, yet another disaster detonated, obliterating their final prospects. The Chicago International Business Center initiative, the structural marvel that had been his crowning achievement. The very project that had vaulted him to prominence now faced a colossal controversy. It started with a nameless entry on an architect's discussion board, paired with in-depth footage breakdowns and photographs. The submission claimed the freshly finished structure already displayed critical fissures in its load-bearing supports and base. The writer, presenting as an ethical structural specialist, highlighted that the employed substances, particularly the metal and cement, fell drastically short of required benchmarks. In essence, outright fraud. The report, at first confined to industry insiders, erupted into a public frenzy via online platforms. Prominent outlets seized the narrative. The vision of the shining high-rise, Chicago's emblem of progress, now linked to alarming descriptors. Substandard work, brittle facade tower, ticking hazard. Officials launched probes into the builder and Mr. Hargrove's firm without delay, freezing the entire operation. As lead designer, overseeing the blueprint and oversight of construction, Darius drew the brunt of the backlash. The standing he'd labored to establish crumbled in a flash. His device buzzed relentlessly. Inquiries from reporters, associates withdrawing deals, buyers of units in the tower insisting on refunds. He slumped in his workspace, gaze vacant on the glaring banners across his monitor. Unthinkable, utterly unthinkable, he whispered. I invested endless toil in that blueprint. I logged countless evenings at the location. How on earth did this occur? At that instant, Mr. Hargrove rang. His tone crackled like a furious animal's growl over the line. Darius, you idiot! What sort of blueprint led to this mess? You've doomed us all! Darius, snapping alert, shouted in retort. This isn't on me. My blueprint is flawless. Blame lies with your outfit. You likely substituted components to pocket profits. Spare me the excuses. The man on the line snorted with dark amusement. We followed your specifications to the letter. You're the principal designer. The fault is yours. Their partnership, forged on mutual gain, fractured irreparably. They hurled accusations wildly, desperate to escape the quagmire. Once the call ended, Darius heaved for breath, quaking. He sensed himself trapped, engulfed by unrelenting gloom. Amid the chaos and hopelessness, one figure dominated his thoughts. Aaliyah Thurston, It had to be her doing. A venomous obsession gripped him. The sequence felt impeccably timed. First the resort site, now the Chicago Tower. All his linked ventures were crumbling. Pure chance was impossible. She must have enlisted experts to probe, uncover vulnerabilities, and expose the details to demolish him. Her goal was vengeance. The split alone wouldn't suffice. She sought to dismantle his world, haul him through disgrace so he'd stay buried. That idea slithered like a poisonous serpent around his core. He viewed Aaliyah no longer as a sympathetic former spouse, but as a perilous foe, a scheming, chilling intellect, pulling levers from the darkness. His features twisted, distorted, fueled by rage and utter terror. Darius's existence had been swallowed by chaos, while Aaliyah's days unfolded with unexpected serenity. She poured her energy into her design workshop or wandered through libraries and galleries, hunting for ideas and resources for the Pinnacle Art Center initiative. That day, she made her way to Mount Si Hospital in New York, a spot she dreaded visiting yet couldn't sidestep. Mr. Solomon, the seasoned silk embroidery artisan and her initial guide, had been hospitalized following a minor stroke. After spending time in his room, conversing with him, and confirming he was settled for rest, Aaliyah departed. As she approached the elevator, she crossed by the children's ward. She planned to keep moving, but a child's unrelenting sobs halted her steps without thought. In the lounge opposite a treatment room, a recognizable silhouette drew her eye. It was Simone Hargrove. Gone was the striking allure from their initial meeting. She sported plain frayed attire, with disheveled hair. Her bare face appeared ashen and drained. Cradled in her embrace was young Malik, wailing uncontrollably, his cheeks burning from a severe fever. Simone seemed utterly bewildered and anguished, swaying the boy while fixating on the clinic entrance. Aaliyah lingered in a secluded spot, observing. A tangled, indefinable emotion surged within her. There was no satisfaction or delight in witnessing her adversary's plight. Instead, beholding Simone grapple with her ill offspring, Aaliyah's view shifted. No longer the despised paramour, but a helpless, anxious parent. And that little one bore no guilt. His sobs rang true, devoid of deceit or scheme. They were merely the agony of a fragile form. He shouldn't bear the fallout from grown-up errors. A sharp twinge of sorrow pierced her. She wasn't flawless. Forgiveness for their transgressions against her eluded her. Yet in that instant, as the infant howled in distress, hatred evaporated. What emerged was unadulterated empathy, rising above any lingering resentment. She had no desire to draw near. Remaining at a remove, she watched before pivoting away. Such issues no longer touched her life. Right then, as she spun around, she collided with another person. "Pardon me," she uttered quickly, glancing upward. The individual before her caught her off guard a bit. It was Quincy Davis. He mirrored her astonishment, but soon offered a polite grin. "Miss Thurston, what an unexpected meeting." Aaliyah inclined her head faintly. "Hello, Mr. Davis." "I stopped by to see a colleague of my father's," he clarified succinctly. Then his sharp eyes settled on her expression. "You appear composed, not quite your usual self." He avoided glancing toward Simone's location. His focus stayed solely on Aaliyah. That tact eased her tension. She denied it with a shake of her head, attempting a grin. "Just echoes of the past." Quincy probed no deeper. He recognized boundaries. He simply regarded her intently and then voiced an offhand remark. "Creativity thrives on sparks. Let shadows of negativity not dim it." His statement carried weight beyond mere comfort, like counsel from a fellow soul who grasped her essence. He viewed her not as a spouse mired in separation, but as a creator whose imaginative realm demanded safeguarding. A soothing warmth flowed through Aaliyah's core. It had been ages since anyone connected with her so profoundly. "I appreciate that," she replied. Now her smile held genuine warmth. She bid him farewell and proceeded to the elevator. The sight of the distressed toddler and the fatigued parent lingered in her mind. Yet Quincy's insight acted as a refreshing gust, softly clearing the gloom and restoring her equilibrium. Her journey centered on artistry and invention. Bygone troubles must fade. The uproar in Chicago and the faltering resort venture had driven Darius to his limits. Still, he clung to a final glimmer of optimism. During the split, he aimed to demonstrate that portions of Aaliyah's wealth had built up over their union, thus claiming funds to rebuild. Unbeknownst to him, a real catastrophe brewed undetected, poised to demolish all in its wake. Within Camille Dixon's legal chambers, the air crackled with intense pressure. Her squad comprised not just skilled attorneys, but elite probes into finances and accounting forensics. At first, their mission was straightforward: compile proof of unfaithfulness and map Aaliyah's holdings to shield her in the proceedings. However, while scrutinizing Darius's earnings for asset splits, a specialist uncovered something irregular. The junior finance examiner highlighted an intricate web of fund movements on the large display. "Camille, check this out. Here's the standard pay and incentives Darius Sterling earned from the Chicago endeavor. Substantial, yet justifiable. But following the dealings tied to Mr. Hargrove's building firm, we spotted odd outflows." She magnified a cluster of transfers. A substantial portion of the project's funding had been funneled to various suppliers of building materials. What raised red flags was that these firms had been established just prior to the initiative's launch. They lacked any prior operations and listed ambiguous addresses for their headquarters. Camille squinted in suspicion. Her honed expertise instantly signaled that foul play was afoot. The specialist affirmed with a nod. Once the funds arrived, these dummy outfits promptly shifted nearly the entire sum, minus a minor cut, to scores of individual bank accounts via a series of tiny transfers designed to evade detection. Tracing those funds demanded considerable effort on our part. She hesitated, drew in a steadying breath, and highlighted a particular entry on the display. Ultimately, a significant chunk of those proceeds landed in an overseas bank account. The beneficiary was Darius Sterling. Silence enveloped the room. All present grasped the gravity of the discovery. This transcended a mere marital dissolution. It pointed to systematic financial wrongdoing, diversion of assets, fund misuse, laundering of illicit gains. Even a single charge could land Darius and Mr. Hargrove behind bars. Suddenly, the pieces aligned perfectly. Darius's rapid ascent in his field and his opulent existence in Chicago stemmed not solely from his architectural prowess, but from tainted wealth. He wasn't merely a disloyal spouse. He was a lawbreaker. Camille wasted no time in contacting Aaliyah. She opted against sharing the details remotely, insisting instead on a face-to-face discussion. In the opulent parlor of the grand estate, Aaliyah pored over the files that Camille presented. With each page, her expression grew more icy. She had always recognized Darius's drive, his shrewdness, and his readiness to bend rules for advancement, yet she never suspected he'd abandon all principles, flouting professional standards, morality, and legal boundaries so brazenly. This deception cut deeper than his affair. It not only tarnished their shared history, but obliterated the upright character she'd once wholeheartedly believed in. "Aaliyah," Camille stated gravely, "armed with this proof, we secure victory in the separation and can pursue a criminal indictment outright. The choice rests with you." Aaliyah lingered in quiet reflection, her eyes drifting to the pane where the dying sunlight cast fading glows. She wasn't one to push adversaries into corners, but this went beyond personal vendettas. It imperiled a major structure's integrity, fairness, and the rule of law. Pivoting toward Camille, her resolve hardened. Camille, Enforce what's mandated by justice. Those who err must face the consequences. This marked the decisive blow, the killing stroke that would unravel Darius Sterling's world. Darius got another missive from Camille Dixon's firm. Unlike previous notices of summons or property splits, this one served as a stark alert regarding dubious monetary flows tied to the Chicago venture, including a fuzzy reproduction of certain wire instructions to the foreign account under his name. It stopped short of vowing legal action, yet the implied menace was crystal clear. Upon spotting those amounts, Darius sensed his reality crumbling. Icy perspiration trickled along his spine. His fingers shook without control. "It's finished," he muttered inwardly. "Aaliyah's uncovered it all. She isn't after the assets. She aims to imprison me." Raw dread eclipsed any logic. He bolted from his workspace in frenzy, hunting for Simone. He located her in the lounge, spooning yogurt to young Malik. Darius slammed the document down on the surface. The thud startled the boy, who wailed instantly. "What the hell is this? Tell me now." Simone, taken aback, soothed the toddler before snatching the sheet. The instant her eyes caught the telltale numbers, her complexion drained of color. I have no idea," she faltered, dodging his stare. Darius's restraint snapped. He seized her arms and jostled her, his voice rising to a near shout. "Stop the charade! How much longer will you deceive me? Aaliyah's aware of it all. She's got the full dossier. She's reporting us. Prison awaits. Get it." The notion of incarceration pierced Simone's deepest dread like a blade. Her facade of helplessness cracked at last. Sobs racked her body, but this time they sprang from genuine horror, not pretense. She crumpled, quaking, and admitted, "It was Father's scheme. He claimed the undertaking required quick cash, insisting it was just a short-term advance we'd repay down the line." Darius erupted in a wild, unhinged cackle. An advance, routing cash through fake entities to a foreign vault as some kind of advance. "And why route it to my holdings?" Because you're the lead designer," Simone hiccuped through her weeping. "Tying it to you made certain outlays look legit. Dad assured me it was the securest path. I acted for us, for our stability." She raised her tear-streaked visage, pleading to his affection. "I dreamed of a secure tomorrow, of providing Malik every advantage. I viewed those funds as family resources. Once we're wed, what's mine becomes yours, doesn't it?" Far from offering solace, her plea doused him like an icy deluge. He let go and retreated a step, gazing at her as though seeing her anew for the very first time. Suddenly, every scattered detail snapped together in his mind, assembling a full and horrifying image. Her arrival in Chicago, her flawless empathy and affection, her unwavering devotion. It was all an elaborately staged illusion. He wasn't the man she cherished. He was merely an instrument, a prize piece in their game. His role as lead designer, his endorsement, and his finances were the real prizes she and her father sought. The romance he'd romanticized, the rationale for his own disloyalty, proved to be a lie right from the beginning. A stabbing ache gripped Darius's chest. Breath escaped him. He'd forsaken a woman who genuinely cared for him, a stable existence, all for a mirage woven by his own delusions and these con artists. He sank onto the couch, his stare vacant. He'd forfeited it all, his profession, his standing, his heart, and likely his liberty before long. The turmoil where he played a starring role had reached its conclusion, and he alone would bear the steepest cost. The flat descended into an eerie quiet following the clash. Young Malik's wails had ceased. Simone held him close in the sleeping quarters, her muffled weeping breaking through now and then. Darius stayed rooted on the couch, his eyes fixed on the faded crimson wine mark on the rug. He sensed himself as a vessel gradually descending into the ocean's abyss, enveloped solely by icy void. Profession, esteem, wealth. It all drained away from his grasp, and even the professed affection and fresh family he'd invoked to excuse his infidelity now stood exposed as an outright scam. He was nothing but a cog, a means to an end. Simone emerged from the sleeping area. Her eyes were puffy, yet she'd composed herself somewhat. She recognized this moment demanded no battle. The sole path to retaining this man lay in projecting fragility, deploying her final tactic. She settled beside him, her tone frail and gentle. "Darling, forgive me. I was furious before, and I uttered words I never intended. Please don't dwell on them. This isn't the moment for disputes. We must devise a way forward side by side. Don't you agree?" Darius offered no reply. Simone pressed on, resting her palm over his, which felt frozen. "Whatever unfolds, we still share Malik. Our little boy is so young. He requires us both. For his sake, let's navigate this as one, all right?" The term boy caused Darius's lids to flutter. He pivoted gradually to regard the woman at his side. Her features remained lovely, yet to him, they now mirrored only vile treachery. Each phrase she uttered carried intent. He withdrew his hand. His voice emerged rough and chill. "Do you truly care for me? Or is it merely my lead designer role you desire?" Simone stiffened, feigning hurt. "What on earth are you saying? Naturally, I care for you." Darius emitted a harsh chuckle, his grin more sorrowful than tears. "Me, or the benefits you could provide your father and yourself?" The disdain in his eyes shattered Simone's final restraint. She could no longer feign. Panic and fury surged, morphing into poisonous, unrestrained barbs. "So what if I do care? And so what if I don't? Darius Sterling, take a look at your situation. What's left for you? Your job is finished. You're broke, and prison awaits. Do you believe you're still worthy of affection?" The quarrel reignited, fiercer than before. The most brutal exchanges flew. "Had I foreseen this, I'd never have partnered with someone like you," Darius bellowed. "You rue it, don't you?" she shrieked, her visage twisted in wrath. "Think I enjoyed it, catering to a man like you, and worse, bearing your child." At the peak of her rage, Simone let slip a remark she'd lament eternally. An offhand remark that struck the fatal wound to Darius's final frailty. She sneered derisively, her voice dripping scorn. "Without this kid, do you imagine you'd hold any worth to us?" A thunderclap seemed to rend Darius. The surroundings halted, the yells, the sobs, the crash of shattered items. All vanished. In his thoughts, solely Simone's final utterance echoed. "Without this kid, do you imagine you'd hold any worth to us?" Worth for exploitation. The boy. A dreadful doubt, an idea he'd never ventured to entertain, burgeoned in his psyche like a beast. He rotated deliberately. His stare held no rage now, just an icy dread. He directed his eyes to the sleeping quarters where Malik rested, the boy he'd proclaimed proudly to everyone. His offspring, the one carrying his surname, his successor. Did he actually resemble him? Or was it mere fancy? Simone, noting his look, experienced a dire foreboding. She grasped her error and sought to mend it. "No, that's not what I meant. I was heated and spoke rashly." But Darius tuned her out. He rose wordlessly, entered his study, and secured the door. That evening, as Simone and the boy slumbered, he slipped quietly into the sleeping area. He regarded the child not through a parent's gaze, yet with investigators. With caution, he gathered several delicate strands from the kid's bedding and enclosed them in a fresh cloth. Next, he extracted a single strand from his head. Clutching both specimens, his pulse raced wildly. He needed the facts, no matter the price. This ultimate revelation demanded answers. The ensuing week dragged on in torment. Darius and Simone shared no conversation. He drifted through the home like a ghost, as she trembled in dread, too afraid to inquire about his actions that evening. Darius passed hours glued to the screen, not laboring, but endlessly checking his private inbox. He anticipated the ultimate judgment on his shattered existence. He'd dispatched the pair of strands to a renowned genetic analysis lab through a discreet delivery firm. They assured delivery of outcomes within 3 workdays via message. Each moment of anticipation felt like agony. Sleep eluded him. He shed pounds noticeably. His stubble lengthened without care. He appeared a decade older. From time to time, he absent-mindedly observed Malik at play. He searched for any shared feature in the youngster's features, a hint of resemblance to himself. Yet the closer he scrutinized, the more alien the boy appeared. That grin, those eyes, zero similarity. By the afternoon of the 3rd day, while he stared blankly, an alert for a fresh message popped up. His breath caught. From Center for Forensic Genetics. Title: Genetic Comparison Outcomes. Ref: Yeah, File ID. His fingers shook as he guided the cursor to open it. He inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of resolve, and selected it. A document was linked. He launched it. The document laid out findings in a detached clinical fashion. Rows of DNA indicators, intricate jargon beyond his grasp. But comprehension wasn't required. His gaze locked on the closing statement, highlighted and boxed clearly. Evaluation and verdict. From examining 24 STR loci, the match between the presumed parent sample, Darius Sterling, and the youngsters, Malik Hargrove, reveals mismatches at 15 sites. Per established protocols in heredity, the determination is clear. The presumed parent's material and the child's exhibit no paternal biological connection, no genetic link whatsoever. Those stark phrases struck Darius like a sledgehammer. In that moment, his reality crumbled. Noise faded away. He missed the TV drone from the lounge or Malik's chuckles. Only the frenzied bellow within his ribcage registered. He'd forfeited his profession, his standing, his wealth. He'd surrendered the partner who cherished him deeply. And now, he'd relinquished the final anchor, the joy of fathering an heir to carry on his bloodline. It was all illusion, a flawless deception where he served as both prey and oblivious extra. He'd been swindled not just of funds and affection, but forced to nurture someone else's offspring. That disgrace cut deeper than parting from Aliyah, eclipsed the dread of imprisonment. A harsh, icy chuckle escaped his lips. It escalated, growing hysterical and unrestrained. He mocked his folly, the audacity of his betrayers, his wretched fate. Salty tears flowed down his cheeks, blending with the manic mirth. He pressed his face against the keys, his sturdy frame heaving uncontrollably. He'd once commanded the peak. Possessions abounded, yet through a single flawed choice, fueled by avarice and self-interest, he'd raised it all personally. And presently, emptiness reigned, utter void. Darius Sterling's downfall accelerated beyond expectation. Post the devastating paternity reveal, he transformed into a hollow husk. No more disputes or outbursts. He evicted Simone and the boy from the residence, not in rage, but eerie quiet. Everything had slipped away. The design company dismissed him to dodge complications. Old associates shunned him. Companions steered clear. His finances locked down. He confronted a torrent of legal actions from the builder and patrons. The upscale residence faced seizure by lenders. From elite designer on high, he tumbled into oblivion without cushion. During his bleakest, most hopeless stretches, when liquor or smokes failed to numb the ache, one vision surfaced: Aliyah's. Not today's radiant, elusive force in the industry, but yesteryear's tender, empathetic spouse, ever supportive through trials. She represented his sole remaining hope. Rallying his last reserves, he motored to her estate. Gone were the tailored outfits. Instead, a creased, dingy top, rumpled trousers, unkempt whiskers spanning days, disheveled locks, and weary, veined gaze. He resembled a vagrant. Even the entrance eluded him. The watchman eyed him disdainfully and barred entry. He lingered across the road, waiting. He lingered there quietly, yearning for a glimpse of her. From dawn till dusk, he stood watch. As the lamps along the avenue flickered to life, the sleek black Bentley at last appeared. When it pulled up to the entrance, he hurried over. Aaliyah Thurston had only just emerged from the vehicle. Spotting Darius in his disheveled condition, she betrayed no shock, almost as though she'd anticipated his presence. Her expression remained steady, utterly unchanged. The driver and bodyguard moved to step in, yet Aaliyah gave a subtle shake of her head. She motioned for them to hold back and fixed her eyes on the figure before her. "What is it you seek from me?" Her tone carried a remote chill, like addressing someone entirely unknown. That emotional gap shattered the final shred of Darius's self-respect. He gazed at her, as radiant and poised as ever, then caught his own wretched image in the car's polished surface. The stark difference crushed him utterly. Words failed him. Instead, with measured slowness, he dropped to one knee right there on the opulent boulevard, bathed in the warm glow of the overhead lights. The individual who'd embodied arrogance now, for the first time, submitted in humility. Tears streamed down his face, genuine ones this time, from a man wholly vanquished. "Aaliyah, forgive me," he murmured, his words fracturing amid choked cries. "I realize it's too late, but I was gravely mistaken." He poured out the full account, how Simone and her father had manipulated him, the shady transactions, his foolish trust in a fabricated romance. At last, he revealed the deepest, most degrading secret. That boy isn't mine. I've been caring for someone else's offspring. Aaliyah, I've been such a fool, an utter joke. He lifted his tear-streaked visage, staring at her in raw desperation, akin to a cornered animal pleading for compassion. "I've forfeited it all. My job, my standing, my circle. Prison awaits. Aaliyah, I won't beg your pardon. I just invoke those marriage years. Aid me once, only once. Rescue me." His appeal hung in the quiet air, feeble and heartbreaking. He'd forsaken every ounce of honor, grasping at the faint possibility of salvation from the partner he'd callously deserted long ago. Aaliyah Thurston observed in stillness, absorbing each admission, each entreaty from Darius. A soft evening breeze rustled her attire. In her gaze lingered no triumph of the winner, no sympathy for the fallen, nor any remnant of resentment, just a profound serenity, smooth and unrippled like a pond settled after turmoil. The soul prostrated before her had once filled her universe, yet now he struck her as merely a sorrowful outsider, a dim echo of the past. She responded deliberately, her words crisp and icy, stripped of feeling. "Rise, Darius." Hope sparked in his eyes as he met hers. "Aaliyah, does that mean?" But her following remark extinguished it entirely. "Your ruin isn't my handiwork. Revenge was never my aim." She held his stare, her speech precise and unwavering. "All this torment stems from your avarice and your choices. You opted for infidelity. You pursued forbidden ventures. You embraced deception. You've wrecked your own existence. Own it. No one else to fault." Darius fell mute. Her declaration wasn't a heated rebuke, but a stark, unsparing reality. She viewed him not even as an adversary deserving retaliation. That detachment stung worse than endless barbs. "But our shared history," he stuttered. "That bond," Aaliyah replied gently, "severed the instant you welcomed another and her child into our house. I won't assist you, nor will I sabotage you further. Let the law decide. Errors demand accountability. That's equity. With that, she passed through the gateway. The sturdy metal barrier swung shut with a sharp rasp, severing the final link between them like a knife's edge. Darius stayed on his knees amid the empty roadway, a lone, wretched silhouette. He understood. It was finished for good. 7 days on, their divorce reached its conclusive session. The chamber's mood was grave and austere. No heated disputes or anguished claims disrupted the flow. Proceedings moved swiftly and methodically. Aaliyah, the initiator, held herself upright, features serene in a sophisticated taupe trouser ensemble. Darius, the counterpart, appeared gaunt and hollow-eyed, resembling a marionette severed from its controls. As the magistrate pronounced the split, backed by undeniable proof, Darius showed no response. Aaliyah accepted the ruling from her attorney, inking the forms with steady, resolute lines. Upon completion, she rose and departed the space alongside her counsel, sparing Darius not a single glance. The portal swung wide, spilling golden noon light into the corridor. Aaliyah blinked against the brightness and inhaled the crisp breeze deeply. She stood utterly liberated. Whatever fate befell Darius thereafter held no relevance to her. A vast horizon stretched ahead, ready for her embrace. Justice arrives gradually, yet it always makes its mark. The downfall of Darius and the Harrow clan served as the starkest illustration of this truth. Following the divorce, the dossier of financial misconduct compiled by Camille Dixon's investigators was formally submitted to the prosecutors. A comprehensive probe ensued. The veil over their shady schemes lifted at last. Confronted with undeniable proof, Darius and Mr. Hargrove found they could no longer point fingers at one another. In unison, they had woven a web of phantom firms, fabricated agreements, and siphoned off massive sums from the Chicago Initiative. The media outlets that formerly lauded Darius now threw themselves into exposing every misdeed of his and the Harrows. Their images splashed across front covers alongside lurid captions: "Genius architect or master deceiver. Harrow's building dynasty crumbles under avarice." In the courtroom, Darius shattered entirely. He confessed to every offense, too drained to contest the charges of fraud, fund washing, and violations of zoning laws. His punishment was meant to serve as a warning, locking away the prime of his existence in a cell. As the chief schemer, Mr. Harrow drew an equivalent verdict. The firm he had erected over decades went under, with authorities confiscating its holdings to cover reparations. Simone Hargrove, though not hands-on in the offenses, couldn't escape accountability for aiding, hiding, and profiting from them. As the scrutiny deepened, an even more explosive secret emerged. Her actual paramour, Malik's real dad, turned out to be a subordinate executive at the firm, a wedded individual. Simone and her partner had orchestrated it all from the start. They exploited Darius's innocence and drive, molding him into the ideal scapegoat to mask their forbidden affair, while also advancing their crooked enterprises. The affection she claimed for Darius was merely a cunning ploy. Once the truth surfaced, her beau escaped abroad, abandoning her to the fallout. His influential kin leveraged their wealth and clout to distance themselves, pinning everything on Simone alone. Stripped of funds, her allure withered, and burdened by supervised release plus crippling liabilities, Simone at last settled the tab for her plots and cupidity. Young Malik, orphaned by neglect, ended up in a foster facility. On the other side, Mrs. Sterling, Darius's mom, hit rock bottom upon hearing her sole child was headed to jail and her fortune had dissolved. The blow triggered a crippling stroke, paralyzing one side of her body and dooming her last days to a sterile ward tended by caregivers. Her vision of a grandson as successor and a wealthy bride to sustain her dissolved into anguish and remorse amid clinical chill. All involved harvested the fruits of their deeds. The vortex of envy, duplicity, and deception imploded on itself, granting serenity to the blameless. Some months on, as the scandal's echoes faded, Aaliyah Thurston's world had fully realigned to its vibrant, tranquil rhythm. She tuned out any updates on those figures. To her, they were now total outsiders, remnants swept away by the breeze from her existence. She poured her focus into her dual endeavors, the gallery at the Pinnacle Art Center and the revival of the Blue Ridge Threadworks Village. Guided by her vision, the Phoenix Rising Heritage Project soared beyond expectations. The Silk Village emerged renewed from its ruins. Historic homes regained their timeless allure through careful refurbishment. Factories got updated. Ancient weaving machines resumed their rhythmic hum. Aaliyah persuaded the remaining skilled craftspeople to remain, providing fair pay and a nurturing space to share their fading expertise. She launched no-cost workshops that drew in eager youths devoted to the tradition. The locale evolved into a premium hub for Phoenix thread production and a captivating spot for heritage travelers. Beyond financial gains, the effort revived a heritage teetering on oblivion. Phoenix thread's standing elevated further. It transcended mere opulence to embody ethics and profound humanity. The current Aaliyah had evolved utterly. Gone was the domestic drudge chained to chores, or the armored warrior perpetually guarded. She struck an ideal harmony in her career. There, she led with resolve and innovated as an artist. Beyond, she reclaimed her essence. She savored books, afternoon brews, floral displays. She journeyed solo to remote vistas, from the Rocky Mountains to Southern heritage hamlets, gathering sparks for her craft and nurturing her spirit. She embraced an unbound, abundant existence, free of entanglements. She wasn't searching for romance anew, nor did solitude unsettle her. She understood that real joy stemmed not from any partner, but from the contentment and serenity within her own soul. She had evolved into an improved self, more resilient and joyful than before. Fall in Charleston, South Carolina, unfolds like a delicate painting. The amber foliage from the ancient live oaks drifts gently over the aged plazas. The curved horseshoe entrances mirror in the calm pools. Aaliyah Thurston had arrived for a journey blending oversight of an artisan initiative with hunting for ideas for her upcoming line. Once her duties wrapped up, she indulged in a peaceful evening meandering along the storied Battery, a renowned seaside promenade in the South. Draped in a flowing azure silk gown, with her locks cascading freely and a vintage film camera clutched in her grasp, she steered clear of the throngs, opting for secluded trails. She absorbed the subtle balance among the buildings, the greenery and the waves, pausing on a modest span overlooking vivid fish in a basin. A cozy, recognizable tone echoed from nearby. If memory serves, this is precisely how genuine creators spark their creativity. A flicker of astonishment crossed Aaliyah's features as she pivoted. Mere paces off, offering a soft grin, stood Quincy Davis. Devoid of his usual executive attire, he sported a pale gray blazer and relaxed trousers, appearing far less the head of a vast enterprise and more inviting and at ease. "Mr. Davis, such serendipity. You're visiting Charleston as well." Quincy drew nearer and rested against the balustrade next to her. "I'm overseeing a small inventure here. I drop by now and then to check progress and flee the frenzy of New York. Looks like our interests align." Silence ensued as they gazed at the vista together. Yet it held no discomfort. Rather, it fostered a mutual appreciation of boundaries. Soon, Quincy shattered the quiet. "That initiative of yours at the Blue Ridge Village, I've caught wind of it. A profoundly impactful pursuit. You're not just a skilled creator. You're someone with immense compassion." Aaliyah demurred with a shake of her head. "I merely follow my instincts on what's just. Embroidery has bestowed so much on me. I felt compelled to honor its origins in return." They set off side by side along the twisting lanes and trimmed lawns. Their exchange veered away from commerce or hefty deals, delving into the legacy of Gullah design, the significance of those wrought iron fences, and the shifting play of illumination and shade across the bay over the hours. Quincy displayed a profound grasp of heritage and creativity, his insights always novel and captivating. Aaliyah, through her creator's lens, discerned the understated allure and concealed sentiments in each nook that most might ignore. They were like-minded souls discovering empathy and harmony in one another, needing few utterances to connect. As they neared a gallery of woven panels, Quincy halted before one illustrating a lion, an eagle, and a stag, emblems of dignity and power. He regarded Aaliyah with earnest, profound eyes. Encountering you now, I grasp the essence of grace truly. It arises not from haute couture or lavish gems, but from the fortitude forged in trials endured, from the calm of releasing grudges. Miss Thurston, I hold you in high esteem. His statement carried no superficial charm. It was authentic acknowledgement, a heartfelt regard. For the first time, a gentleman perceived her essence and valued her not as the affluent Phoenix heir, but as Aaliyah Thurston herself. A soft, tender warmth bloomed in Aaliyah's chest. She offered a subtle beam, as luminous as the fall daylight. Thank you, Mr. Davis. No discussions of tomorrows occurred, no vows exchanged. It remained merely an evening of joint wandering, exchanging views on aesthetics and existence. Yet amid the serene setting of Charleston's grounds, a subtle flicker, rooted in insight and esteem, appeared to kindle. Aaliyah Thurston made her way back to her Greenwich Village estate on a lazy weekend dusk. The amber glow of twilight poured via the expansive pane, bathing the area in warm hues. She brewed a vessel of jasmine brew, its fresh scent permeating the air. Holding the steaming mug, she lingered at the glass, wordlessly surveying the urban panorama. The towering structures stood defiant. Vehicles surged without pause. New York pulsed with its usual energy and clamor. But the viewer's outlook had shifted utterly. In her thoughts, visions of Darius or Simone had vanished entirely. Those figures, those chapters, had receded into history, akin to a bad dream that scars yet no longer aches. She had mastered absolution, not for them, but for her own sake, to advance unburdened. A passing reflection on that Charleston interlude, on the fellow with the penetrating stare and aligned essence, curved her mouth into a soft grin. It had been a lovely meeting. It might happen someday down the line, yet she harbored no expectations and felt no urgency. Her joy had evolved beyond needing a partner at her side. Placing the cup aside, she ascended to the third-floor sanctuary of her personal workshop. The room remained immaculate and serene. The aroma of fresh silk mingled with sandalwood, fostering a soothing ambiance that eased her spirit. She moved toward a vacant easel supporting a ready pearwood frame. Opting against vibrant hues, she selected a flawless sheet of premium white silk, as delicate and velvety as an infant's complexion. Using her graceful, elongated fingers, she meticulously secured the material across the frame. Each action reflected skill and intent. The pristine cloth stretched taut and flawless, akin to an untouched sheet ready for fresh narratives. Settling into her seat, she unlocked the case of embroidery floss. Countless reels of silk in every conceivable tint stood arranged with precision, gleaming beneath the illumination. She took her time selecting, instead contemplating them quietly as concepts and outlines emerged in her thoughts. What design would grace this cloth? Perhaps a soaring phoenix in flames, emblematic of her renewal, a pristine white magnolia, representing serenity within, or an expansive vista of peaks and streams, signifying her liberation. The choice eluded her for now, and that was fine. Her existence mirrored that unmarred expanse, The form and hue it assumed lay wholly in her hands, shaped by her decisions. She picked a reel of turquoise floss, evoking optimism and fresh starts. Deftly, she loaded the silver needle. Bathed in the soft golden glow, Aaliyah bent slightly ahead, posture erect, eyes intent. She drove the initial stitch into the immaculate white silk. Stitch by stitch followed, deliberate, resolute, brimming with assurance. Through her own craftsmanship, she was weaving the fabric of her destiny, a destiny radiant, unbound, and forged by her will alone. Enjoyed the tale. What city are you tuning in from? Drop by in the comments to connect. If the story resonated, show your backing with a super thanks. It helps me deliver more tales just like this. Grateful for your kind encouragement. Eagerly awaiting your thoughts below. Check out the 2 Fresh Life narratives on screen that I truly suggest. My channel holds even more gems. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Catch you for the upcoming story. Warm regards and appreciation.